And shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University Precept Mastery. And I'm Elder Michael Johnson. And today we're going to be going through Romans as we normally do on every week. So what I want to make sure is that each and every person is here and making sure that we have our thinking caps on today, because we're going to be going through a lot of information today to make sure that we can assimilate and make sure we can comprehend everything that's going to be going out, to where we can put on our thinking caps and knowing exactly what is going on with thus said the Lord. So what we did, we left off from last week on what we was doing, and we need to make sure that we pick up from where we did from last week, because we were stopped at Romans 15:4, and now we're going to pick it up at Romans chapter 15 verse 5. So just making sure that each and every one of us have this going through. I want to check something real quick because we have one little small issue. I want to make sure that I get this corrected real quick. Let me just check one thing, so just bear with me for 1 second. And I don't know why it was doing this, but let me get this one thing through, and I can we can go ahead and go right through it. And let me see here. And it's going through here. I don't know why it was doing it the other way, but we should be okay from here out. So what we want to do, we want to immediately pick up from where we left off at, but we want to recap on what was going on from last week as we pick up with this week. So let me invite you over to the Bible where we're going to go through. Let's look first at verse 4 from where we left off at. And it says, "For whatsoever thing were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope." Now, we went through this last week, and we know now that through learning and patience is what we need to have, because the same thing what we was going through last week, that God having patience with us, who committed himself to where he wanted to make sure we can learn exactly how to do patience, in which we got to dig a little bit more into. Excuse me. So the same thing is, we have committed sins. On what we looked at last week, we committed sins is over 10,000 talents worth. And we can find comfort now in the scriptures, to where if we can get rid of sin and turn that in and lay down what is causing sin, we lay that down and put that up on a tree, we can have comfort in knowing that he will continually teach us to where he can pull us closer to him as we continually going forward as being servants to God. We can fall down and worship the Creator, presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice and wholly acceptable unto him. And as long as we continually do that, we can fulfill what is being required from the Most High God of Israel. So what we're doing is we're looking at these things, and as we're going through here, we have to pay close attention to what's going on. Because as we living in these tabernacles, we in these temporary pieces of just flesh. And we are the temples of God. And we have to remember what we are. So let's look at some of this, and we're going to go down and dig a little bit more, because as I said, Paul is closing this out. He's closing it out, but he want to make sure he's parting these gifts on things that we need to remember as we go through. In verse 5, it says this. It says, "Now, the God of patience, including consolation, grant you to be like-minded one towards another, according to the anointing of salvation." That was the focus of what we was doing. That was the focus on what we was looking at last week, but he's making sure we clearly understood what was happening. So we know now that the scriptures was written aforetime for our learning. In our learning, our learning takes time. And with time, it takes patience. This is what we have to really pay attention to with us, because we're going to find out that patience isn't something that is, many of us, it's not our strong suit. Most of us think that is a strong suit, but it actually is not. And we're going to find this out to where we can do self-evaluations as we're going through the scriptures. But these scriptures was written for aforetime for our learning. In learning of our infirmities and our strength, and we are to be pleasing. This is one thing we got to make sure of. We got to be pleasing to our neighbors with edification of Christ. I know that's going to be hard for some people, but we have to look at that as a whole. Not that he came, even with Christ, he didn't come to please himself, but according to the flesh is the reason he came. And it was according to the adoption. And many people teach adoption in many different ways, but adoption don't mean anything but Shiloh. Shiloh is whose right it is. The portions of right according to the word of God. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking to be adopted into eternal life. And the main thing is we have to remember, not because we are children of Abraham, not because of children of Abraham, because children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise, accounted for the seed. And these things we have to keep in mind as we continually go through scriptures, as we continually live. But we have to be according to the promise made, in which is the established covenant, that we will be obedient to the voice of God. We find that not all of us follow the established covenant. We found that many of us have fallen and tripped and did many things out of the way of the covenant. So the promise is being fulfilled to the ones that is seeking the promise. They seeking to fulfill this. So always remember this. For all of us are not Israel. all of us is not Israel. All which come from the loins of Israel doesn't make us all Israel. God has patience, which is nothing but patience means forbear or forbearance. You can look at it either way. But it's the patience that God has with us. Because that's why he says, not as though the word of God has taken not effect. But they are not all Israel which are of Israel. Because he knows through patience and through learning, we can be one of the ones that he's looking for. But if we choose not to, we have a problem. But that's why he said it right up there in front. In verse 5, it says, now the God of patience, including consolation. In consolation, we want to clearly understand what that one is. It's the comfort. It can be encourage and exhort, but right here is showing you that we have comfort. That's why he says, now the God of patience, including comfort, because he can comfort us with these scriptures, letting you know, even though we have fell off, but we can have comfort as long as we turn. As long as we turn and do right, we can inherit and come into the adoption of Christ. Because God has granted us patience. He granted that to us. And it's telling you right there, this is granted to us. So as he had granted us patience, and he granted us consolation, so we should show the same thing when you have sit there and you have came into the light, you have came into the knowledge, you have came into the understanding on what's required from God. So we have to show that same identical patience, that same identical consolation. We have to show this towards our neighbor, to glorify God, the creator of salvation, of forgiveness. This is why we have to really take a self-evaluation. Because a lot of us is sitting there always seeking, and they want to covet. But God said we shouldn't covet. But we covet it. We covet it for many different reasons. But we're going to go through and we're going to find out a lot of things that we have within our flesh. And many of us didn't know we have it. But some of us do know we have it. So with this God of patience and the consolation, he showed us what we need to do towards our neighbor. We're going to look at some of those things. We got to look at how he have forgiven us. But those things can come right back to us if we don't show the same thing towards our neighbor. See, being a people of God, we need to fully understand what these words mean according to the word of God, not according to what men have developed and are trying to twist it another way to make these words mean something else. We have to clearly get and understand what's going on to where it's not about you doing something to put some person up on a pedestal. It's not about trying to make sure how much you giving. It's not about you making sure they doing certain things. But it's through the consolation of God, the comfort that with patience he has granted us to do something. So we got to look at this, and we're going to be going through it in detail so we can understand first what patience, and understand how the Bible is the living word. It's the same thing you can see as you can walk around and run and jog and do all things. The word can do the identical thing. And the best part about it is the word is eternal. That's coming from God. It's an eternal thing. So these things we we have to know in what's going on here. We have to remember what this is all about on this here. So this is why it's so important to see what is happening here. What is so important, what is going on here. So let's look at this, and we're going to get down into some of this here. When you look over here, we're going to go over in Psalms 145 in verse 8. We're looking over here in Psalms 145 in verse 8. We're going to look at some of this here. And it says, the Spirit of God is gracious, including full of compassion, slow to anger, including of grace, great mercy. I want you to pay attention to this, because with that, we learn patience. Patience, as I said, is forbearance, but it's the learning of this. We have to learn patience. So learning this gives us the ability to invoke certain things. It can invoke certain things. The working is not just within the mind, but patience is taught using examples to exhibit, even by the master of patience, which is God. So this is why we got to learn patience. We need to learn the same thing as slow to anger. Slow to anger, slow to understanding that sometimes people, when teaching the word, you can't get quickly angry with people because of they trying to learn the word. Not people that's trying to fight against the word, but people who's trying to learn what you learn. Because some people will mix that up. They'll say, well, I see it this way and you see it that way. That's not a person trying to learn. That's a person that's an opposition. That's a person who's trying to push what their theology is based on what precepts are. So that's not sitting there where you telling someone they trying to learn. Learn is someone trying to understand it, and then you might have to go through many different precepts to get them to understand what the Bible has to say. And that comes with self-control. With another person and learning under you of God with precepts. So it should not be an evil thought, even constraint to avenge anyone or out of an obligation. Only patience. Only patience can take care of this. So as we continually going through this, we're going to look over here in the far end. We want to go to Deuteronomy chapter 23. We're going to pick it up at verse 22. We're going to see this actually in the law. It says right here in verse 22, it says, but if thou shalt forbear, if you shall have patience to vow. So we got to make a vow. And it's going to come with some patience. We're going to find out how this works. It says, it shall be no sin in thee. We're going to find out what this is actually talking about. Because knowing that God is God of patience, he also teaches us through his mercy how to develop and for us to grow in learning. But he has to have patience with us. The ones who want to learn, the ones who's trying to go his way, the ones who want to do it right, not the ones who want to be rebellious and go to that way, where he has to sometimes wrath. And then we want to sit there and act like, what did we do wrong? That's not sitting there where he having patience. Where he's sitting there, he's teaching you. But some people want to go the hard way. So we have to learn patience for ourselves, and we must remember we are learning of God, and God is the guide of all things. we can't never get these two mixed up, because you have people, no matter what, they're going to sit there and they say they want to learn, but as soon as they want to learn, the first thing they'll do, they'll issue out an underlying question, which is they have a certain way of thinking that they want to keep. And they're thinking that they're catching someone in a certain way. So they really not trying to learn. They really is challenging the precepts or the documentation that is in the Word. This constantly happens. And this is why we have to watch what patience is and when someone is doing something contrary. So there is no such thing as a shortcut. No such thing as shortcuts in learning of God's life skills. No such thing. That's why people, they go run into commentaries, they go run into all these things because they think they can get a shortcut to learning God's life skills. And one of God's life skills is patience. So learning that life skill from the tree of life and not seeking shortcuts to where you can learn the skill of patience, where you can learn this skill. Actually, I want to show you something. We're gonna look at something a little bit closer. I'm gonna invite you over to 1 Peter. No, actually, we're gonna go to 2 Peter. We're gonna go to 3 and verse 8. And I want you to have a thought. We're gonna look at it real close. We're gonna go to 1 Peter chapter 3 and picking it up at verse 8. It says, "But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing." So the same thing, we're going to see patient before your very eyes, because we want to clearly get what patient is. And it says, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Creator comparing 1,000 years. In 1,000 years, comparing one day. I want you to sit there. I want you to think about that. Because what we're going to do, we're going to go through a lot of different exercises within Scripture to clearly get what he's talking about. Because we have to have patience. So to the Most High God, 1,000 years is one day to him. And one day to him is 1,000 years to us. So with this comparison, we have to really clearly get what he's saying. So the only way to do this is to invoke something to where we have to think. Meaning this, the same comparison, which we know it took 7 days for the Most High to create the heaven and earth. So our understanding is one thing, but I'm going to invoke something else to where we need to think, we need to understand and really get it. So keeping lifespans in mind with the 1,000 years in one day. So I want to invite you and give you something to think about. If you look at a lifespan of a daylily, you can even go check it and see about them and all other kind of things. But they have a few other ones. But one of the most famous ones is daylilies. It's called a daylily. The lifespan of a daylily is 24 hours. One day of a daylily. So which is the 1,000 years? Because the lifespan of a daylily is one day. So the lifespan of the daylily, the man or God. Meaning this. To us, one day is 24 hours. To us. I want you to pay attention to what's going on. And to the daylily is 1,440 minutes. Keep that in mind. It's 24 hours to us. To the daylily, it's 1,440 minutes. One day to God is 1,000 years. So which time frame is really correct? Which time frame? If we take the time and look at this, which one of these correct? Because we have 24 hours, we have 1,440 minutes, and we have 1,000 years set before us. So which one is right? See, the 24 hours or the minutes in the beginning. See, God created three things at the beginning. Is why it's so important for us to really personally understand how everything is created and why it takes time. See, God created three things in the beginning. He created time, he created space, and he created matter. The answer is which one was created first. That's the answer. But the answer to that is, that's something for you to chew on for a while, to know which one he created first. So, which one is real is at the end is correct. Think about that. See, these things we should be thinking on, but we need to learn patience to learn of God. But the first thing many of us try to do, we try to hurry up and get the shortcuts or guessing and all this, and it's a waste of time. Not learning of God, but just trying to find a quick fix to do it. Patience. Tell you what, we're going to look at this in even a little bit more, to make sure we can clearly get what's going on. Where people will try to speed up on patience and try to learn with the quick fix. So I still have questions to ask. What about, we're going to keep the man day, 24 hours. 24 hours. So let's test that. Now, what about people comparing God 1,000 years to the man's one day? So let's say someone learned in one day how to do brain surgery. Interesting, isn't it? Will you let them do brain surgery on you? And they have taken the 24 hours to learn in one day. The same as God created the world, most people say, in one day. Will you let someone do brain surgery on you or brain surgery on your loved one? Or what about if someone learned how to do a blood transfusion in one day? 24 hours. They have taken a 24-hour crash course in that one day. If these are not fair time given, why do we have the same in doing the same to our brothers? We need to think about something. Because to seek time with God, or are we seeking the time with man? What I'm saying is this. We want time with God. One second. We seeking the time with God. But when we get to man or our brother, it's different. We're not seeking to give them time. We don't have patience with them. Let me bring this a little bit closer. We got to bring it a little bit closer here. And we're going to go here and we're going to look at something. Let's go here and we're going to look at something. Let's go to Matthew. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 18 and picking it up at verse 26. And we're going to see what this patience is all about and seeing how we are complex when it comes to people and God. And we're going to look at verse 26, and it says, the servant therefore fell down and worshipped him. But what happened, this man owed this king, this God, 10,000 talents. And he owed it to him, he couldn't pay it. So with the time that he needed to pay it, because if you go up and read the story, the parable on what he's trying to show to us, go up and read the story, he says the same thing. It says, when he had begun to reckon one, which was unto him one which owed him 10,000 talents, for as much as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and his children and all that he had for in payment to be made. And the servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience. Really interesting, isn't it? Patient with me, and I will pay thee all. Look how when we are in this position, now we at a position of a servant. We seeking patience. The same thing that Paul is trying to get us to really get to understand the inner workings of a skill we need to have within our toolbox is patience. Now the God of patience and consolation grant you to be like-minded one towards another. But are we being like that one towards another? Are we? Is this true? So his Lord forgave him of the debt. He was forgiven of the debt. Having patience. Because he was in a position to where now he's subservient to the person who granted him patience. But what about us? What about if we in the same position as the king is in? What do we do? What do we do? Let's drop down to verse 29. And just to get some understanding, we're going to look the same thing. We're going to start at verse 28 just to see what really went down. And you see it says, but the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him. He's getting a little bit closer, right? Which owed him 100 pence. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, have patience with me. You are in the same position as the king. We are now in the same position as him. So what do we do with that? When we're in the same position, we have a king who forgiven a debt of 10,000 talents, and now we are presented the same, but only with 2 pence. And we now in this position, this peculiar position, to see how have we learned patience? Have we learned this? Have we learned this skill? Have we learned how to invoke patience, slow to anger, and everything? Did we learn it? It's interesting. Because the God of patience has granted us to be like-minded towards another. He granted us this. So this is being tested. while we're in the wilderness. This is being tested. Let's look at this. And he said, be patient with me and I will pay thee all. But let's look at verse 30. And he would not. Wow. Wow. He would not. See, we can sit there and look at the story all day. We can look at this story all day. We can look at the parable consistently all day. However, when we are put in the position of leadership, meaning not church leadership, but you can be a supervisor, a manager, and someone had patience with you. And then you get in this same position and you treat people like this. They sitting there, hey, just teach me and I can get it. No. You can't do it. You got to go. People can say what they want. We've seen it. Some of us experienced it. And it happened with this one, he would not, but it says, what did he do? He went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. Think about that. See, the reason why, because we will sit there and we love to always point fingers at everybody else. But when you in that position to where you can show and exhibit patience, you choose not to do it. But if you at that subservient one, we can't do it. We seeking them to give us patience. So what do that do? It's teaching the life skill of patience and have compassion with our fellow brother. But what that makes us. See, what do that make us as doing that? Because we need to fully understand what that actually means, what he was in the position of. This is why we got to think and use our minds. What position are we actually in once this is invoked on us? Once we invoked and put in a supervisory or a leader position, having the knowledge on what he went and he was loose and he had patience and now he has that skill, and let's see, did he show that skill to his brother? He didn't. So what position do that put him in? That make him a doctor of the law. A doctor of the law. That's why he was able to put him in jail. Everybody's seeing this. And that makes you something special. It makes you something really special. Let's see how special you become. Because a lot of us don't know what that special is. But it's easier for us to see what that special is. Because when you see these things and these things come out, it makes you a Pharisee. Because you picking now and choosing who you can impart the doctor's skills, imparting the skills of knowledge to anyone. You can give this one, that one. No, I'm not going to help this one. Yeah, I help this. No, I'm not going to help this one. But I'm going to help that one. No, I don't want to help this one. I'm going to help that one. No, I'm not going to help this one. Makes you a doctor of the law. Picking and choosing who you think you want to save. Let's look at some of this a little bit closer. Go to Luke chapter 18. We're going to look at verse 11 and see something. It says, the Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. God, because he imparted him, God, I thank thee that I'm not like other men. See, this guy over here, he owed him 200 pence. He's not like him. No, he's a Pharisee. He actually owed 10,000. He actually owed 10,000 talents. Unpayable. not like other men, extortioners or unjust adulterers, or even as this publican that owes me 200 pence. Interesting. It says, I fast twice a week, I give tithes of all that I possess. Picking and choosing is what we're good at doing. Because we say we have patience, but you picking and choosing who you want to save. So when you go to the doctor's office, and these doctors have these God thoughts and these God mentalities, why are you tripping with him? Because you exhibiting the same thing he exhibiting, just in a different form. You have the life skills of saving someone else, your neighbor, from destruction in the last days. But you choose not to do it because they have on a blue shirt or a red shirt. Interesting, isn't it? They have on a football shirt, the team you don't like. They have on something that you dislike. They don't look close to your stature, as in wealth or income earning abilities. So you choose to be a Pharisee. You're going to be a doctor of the law. You're going to pick and choose who you feel you should save. You should save, not God. You should save. But those same skills was imparted to you from God. He granted you that. And then you could have granted that to someone else and told them what God was seeking. But you chose not to do it. See, this is good for what we're doing. We do this consistently. And pride is what we really get into. See, pride kicks in and then we feel a lot. Once we have gotten certain statures and certain abilities and certain areas of knowledge and all these different things, all this stuff, all of a sudden we know so much, we actually end up putting God on the same level as us. You see what the Pharisee did? You see what he did? He stood and prayed with himself. He didn't pray with God. He prayed with himself. He said, God, I thank thee. I'm not like other men. Because he putting his same self on the exact level as God. We do this. We do these things. And what happens is the same thing is people do this where they learn. They'll learn so much, and then they feel, oh, I got enough, so I have enough. Now I'm on the same identical level as the one, him, and now I'm equal. Pride kicks in. I know enough now. I now know everything. Interesting. See, we look at these things and we don't look at really what really comes out of us. So when we look at even 2 Esdras chapter 8 to find out how this even happened, because this even happened to one of my favorites, really in the Bible, and really interesting guy, real interesting guy, is Esdras. Esdras in the Old Testament, Esdras in the Apocrypha, but highly interesting guy. And the reason he's so interesting because Esdras is very unique in a lot of things that he did. He'll show cockiness and then he'll show humility. He'll show he had a lot of ability and he's quick to know when he went wrong. He's an interesting guy. If you really get into him, he's a very, very interesting guy. And we're going to see something what happened with him. So I want to look at this, and we're going to go over here to 2 Esdras and look at chapter 8. The reason why we're going to look at something, we're going to look at chapter 8, and we're going to look at verse 50. The reason why I want you to really see what's going on here. We're going to look at verse 50 and go down and see how pride kicks in. I want you to see how pride kicks in. And start at verse 3, it says, "For many great mysteries shall be done to them that in latter times shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride." Wow. They feel they know enough. So they're walking pride. We see this today. People will sit there and they're walking great pride. Once they have a drop of knowledge, I don't care on any subject, they're walking great pride. In great pride. It says with this, let's look at this. It says, "But understand, thou for thyself seek out glory, for such comparing be like thee." Someone seeking glory to be just like him. And this is why we had this issue. Because I don't care what field of business you're in or whatever you're doing. The same with the Bible. When you sit there and you see people, one of the best stories I can tell you is I have a nephew. I'm just thinking about it. Just came to mind. He's a smart kid. And the main thing is he learned something, and then he thought he was better than the people he learned from. Automatically. That's pride. Automatically this happens. Soon as he learned it, he thought automatically he was better. This is true all day today. It's the same thing as you sit there and see, same thing as I tell people. As me and my brother came up and we worked for our dad, a lot of things I learned from my brother. Many things. Even when we were doing business with our father. A lot of things I learned from my brother. At not one time I ever thought I was better than my brother. Now, they used to try to pit us together and pit us against each other. And sitting there saying, oh, yeah, some would sit there and say, oh, yeah, I have him anytime. And some would say, they're my brother. But at not one time I ever thought I was better than my brother. Not one time. I might have did one thing better than him. But all around, no. My brother ran circles around me. He was better at that all day long. And I knew it. I'm not sitting there saying, okay, I can do everything. I knew one thing we can do when we was first getting everything ready and riding and oh yeah, I felt I was stronger in him doing that. But to do the overall job, no. I'd be a fool. He probably learned things that I'd never ran into. So how can I say I'm better than him? How can I say I'm smarter than him doing that? That'd be stupidness. Just plain foolery. Same as where he worked on cars and doing different things, and I never would sit there and say that I was better than him. But people do this. People will sit there and learn from somebody and then think they're better than them. The same thing here. Because now once you have it, you think you done learned it, and you don't know what the patience was with this first one who did it. You don't know what it took for him and all the other things that he went through to learn what he learned along the way. And then he's showing you the actual way, just to, okay, by all this trial and error, I did this. Now I'm going to show you, and you're not going to see the trial and error, what the effects of those are. So now you just learn how the finished product is. And once the finished product happen, you doing the finished product, and now you think you better than the person that taught you. And once you think you better than the person that taught you, that one time what his trial and error is, that trial and error happens to you. And now you're lost. But you're better than him. Interesting, isn't it? Because now you don't know what to do. He does. Same as our Father used to do us. He was good at doing it. And my dad, he'll sit there and he'll let you get in that certain trouble, but he'll come and fix it. But he going to make sure you get in that trouble first. And the same thing is what happened in here with Uncle Idris. So it's saying this, and we're going to look at verse 52. It says, "For unto you is paradise open, the tree of life is planted. The time come is prepared, plenteous is made ready, the city built, and the rest allow ye perfect goodness and wisdom." Interesting. But he gets on more. It says, "The root of evil is sealed up from you. Weakness in the moth is hid from you, and corruption is fled until hell to be forgotten. Sorrow is past, and in the end is shown the treasures of immortality." And we're going to get to some interesting things here. It says this. It says, "Including therefore ask thou no more questions concerning the multitude of them that perish." No more asked about those that was high-minded, which we're going to get into. Let them that perish. They thought they knew everything. And you see this here. It says, "For when they have taken liberty," wow, "they despise the Most High." They thought they was on the same identical level. Once they got a drop of information, and they thought automatically they was high-minded. Think about that. People will get high-minded, and they do this. So what happened is they got high-minded, and they did this. And it says, "Through scorn of his law and forsook his ways." Oh, I got a better way of doing it. I know he does it this way, but I got a better way of doing it. Has that ever happened to you? They'll show you a way to, well, we want this done this way. And you know, I got a better way of doing this. It's been done like this for the past 10 years, and this is the best way we have seen that it works, and we know this way it goes. No, I got a better way of doing this. And you have forsook his ways. The same we do with the Most High. So these questions comes up, and this is why we put this there. See, many will perish because they know a way to get some, because their patience is drawn thin, because now once they feel they are on the same level as God or you or whoever you have taught, as soon as they feel they're on the same level as you, their patience disappear, because now they're on the same level as you. So their patience vanish. As despising you and despising the ways of the Most High. You see this? They despise his way because now they feel they're on his level. They're gods, believing they can comprehend anything that God can come up with now. So let's look at this and see. That's why I told you Uncle Idris is really interesting, and that's why I'm using him. And we're going to look at 2nd Idris chapter 4, picking it up at verse 2. And actually we'll start at verse 1 just to get some clarity. And we see that it says, "And the angel was sent unto me, whose name was Uriel." So Uriel gave me an answer, and he said, "Thy heart has gone too far in this world." I want some of you guys to think about this. See, because don't look at Uncle Idris. You look at yourself. Because we quick to do this. In the same thing, it says, now the God of patience and consolation grant you to be like-minded one towards another. And the first thing we want to do is sit there and say, oh, you know who just like that? You know, such and such is just like, no. Throw that away. Throw that away. Before you take that little eensy-beensy, tiny little speck out of their eye, get that 400-mile boulder out of your eye. That's what we're going to do. So, is what he's saying here. He says, thy heart has gone too far in this world, and thinketh thou comprehend the way of the Most High. You see, he's asking the question. Because most people, they'll sit there and they'll think they get on the level. And the same I tell people all the time. Same thing with me and even Dr. Shaul. Dr. Shaul, when they sat there and they said that, you know, this Michael Johnson, he precept, and this was in his arena. He said, this guy precepts better than Dr. Shaul. Dr. Shaul even agreed to it. He asked me, did I agree to it? No, you can get that to come out of my mouth, even to this day. And this man is passed on. I'm not Boo-Boo the Fool, because I knew this man has probably forgotten more than I learned. He's probably forgotten more than I've learned. But they were just saying what the skill sets was, what I was doing was good. But the knowledge, Dr. Shaul had it all day long. And he still was able to tell me things to which I had to not just comprehend it right then. I had to go back and I had to truly meditate on it. And meditate, and how did he come up with, what in the world? Yeah, I'm telling you, he was different. He was different. He was kind. He was different. He had compassion. He was different, but he had patience. And he had to have it with me, because sometimes I would ask him 4 million questions on that one question he posed, and he'd never give me the answer. And he had many different ways of showing it. But the main thing is, as what the scripture says, see, thy heart in this world thinketh we can comprehend the ways of the Most High. We get the Bible and we look at it for a little bit, and the main thing is now all of a sudden we read it and we get it. So it says this. Now, this is Uncle Idris. Now, that's why I say Uncle Idris, he's a funny guy, too. It says, then said I, yea, my Lord. And he answered to me, and I said, I am sent to show thee 3 ways, and set the fourth 3 similitudes before thee. Because he's sitting there, yeah, I get it. See, this is Uncle Idris. You got to love the guy. When the angel said that you comprehend the way, yeah, Lord, yeah, please, go ahead, bro. Yeah, I get it. How many of us do that? Tons of us do this. Tons of us do this. Well, you think you get it? Yeah. Oh, you get it now. Oh, yeah, I got it. So he asks a question. He says, whereof, if thou can declare me one. Think about that. One. Declare to me one. I will show thee the way that thou desirest to see, and I shall show thee from whence the wicked heart cometh. He said, you show that, I'm going to show you where that wicked heart came from. Uncle Idris ain't even figured out that the wicked heart is his. This is the catch. Because he felt that the Most High felt him so much, and then that pride kicked up in him. As with many of us. As with many of us. And it goes on here, and it says this in verse 5. He said, tell on. See, Uncle Idris is so cocky. Drop it, bro. Drop it. Drop one of them so I can break you off. That's pretty much how he's doing. Just tell it to me. And then he said unto me, go thy way, weigh me the weight of fire. Or measure me the blast of wind. Or call me again the day that is past. Interesting, isn't it? And I even posed these sayings once because all of them have an answer. And they're direct answers in the Bible. But when people really get cocky and do certain things, stuff like this pops up. And when we believe that we can comprehend all the ways of the Most High, and we clearly don't. So with the question of one day, went back to that same thing. One day is 1,000 years to God. 1,440 minutes to a daylily, and 24 hours to a person. The question still becomes is, what could we seek as the way to fire? How can we figure that one out? What do we need to be able to comprehend to actually properly figure it out? Or the measure of a blast of wind. What is the measure of a blast of wind? What is that? How do that work? How do that look? Or simply call the day that passed back. See, now our quickness all of a sudden shuts down. See, but many people are going to sit there and guess. And when you do start guessing, that's ignorance. That's on our behalf. Because we still thinking we know it. That's why I tell people, you shouldn't guess. Because if you don't know it, don't guess. Because when we guess, that's our ignorance showing. Because we think we still comprehend it. And we didn't. So we need patience to understand it. We need patience to learn, to get to understand what he said. We need patience. Because even with him, you're going to see he had a problem. Because we look at verse 6 and he says this. It says, then answered I and said, what man is able to do that thou should have asked such things of me? Really? You just said you understood the Most High. You said you comprehended it. But you can't do this? You said you can pay the 10,000 talents, but now it's time to pay up. You need patience. Interesting, isn't it? Patience is a unique skill that one needs and one have to learn. So we're both, and we like to seek quick answers. Not taking the time to learn the ways of God. Our ways are not God's ways. Our thoughts are not his thoughts. God teaches us through his patience in his time. The same thing you see a tree. You see a tree go outside. You can plant a tree. You plant a tree, it can be 6 inches tall. But the time that he would take it, that tree to even reach just partially maturity, might take that tree 15, 20 years. But what did you learn through that 15 to 20 years of that tree growing? What did you learn from it? Or you just watched the tree grow? This is our problem. We just watch the tree grow, and then all of a sudden we know the tree grow. All you do is plant the tree, put some water on it, and it grows. Really? That's all you learn from it? That shows the ignorance that we have towards God. That shows that we didn't even take the time with God. We just wanted the quick fix. We just wanted the quick fix with God and not really trying to take the time with God. And you look at these things and you see this happening constantly. Back in Deuteronomy, we're going back there again. We got to go back to the law and look at this. And look at verse 23 and just seeing what it's saying. It says, That which is gone out of my lips, thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed unto the Spirit of thy God, which thou promised with thy mouth. That is coming from each and every one of us. This is each and every one of us. We have to learn to keep what is going out of our mouth as a lesson also. God has given us time and patience with us for us to seek him, and we need to be able to perform those things which we learn. That's what our brothers and sisters learn the ways of God. It goes on more, and then I'm going to show you why I'm saying that. It says, when thou comest unto thy neighbor's vineyard. Oh, it's getting a little bit closer, isn't it? Thou mayest eat grapes thy fill at thy own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. Interesting, is that? The reason this is so interesting because we do this. We come into our neighbor's vineyard and we treat them any kind of way. We treat our brothers and sisters any kind of way. And he's saying now the God of patience and consolation has granted us to be like-minded one towards another, according to the anointed one of salvation. Are we doing that? The reason why Paul is making sure this is really there, and we need to really pay attention to it, because this is an important thing to which we lack that skill, is patience. Same in Deuteronomy chapter 15, picking up at verse 11, to show you even more what he did with the guy with the 200 pence. Remember that. Don't drop that out the way. You got to remember that. Let's look at this in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 4. Chapter 15, verse 11. It says, for the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore, I command thee, saying, thou shalt open thy hand wide unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in the land. And thy hand don't mean nothing but the power. The power that you have been given, the power of understanding and wisdom, you have been given. Our brother is poor in knowledge, so we have the power to give him knowledge and understanding in learning the ways of God. He says, open thy hand wide. We vowed the vow, made the promise, free will offer, the gift. And we seek that gift, but did we keep it? See, that's the thing. See, how we've presented our bodies as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God. So our temples don't supposed to be ours. Ours is God now. So if it's God, are we fully letting God use it? Because if we don't, He not going to use it halfway. And He want to let His people know. So are we doing this? Are we really giving our bodies as a living sacrifice, as a gift to God, to perform according to the word that we were spoken, and all that the Lord have said? We have all said, all that He has said we will do. That is our vow to God, with the promise by our mouth. Have we kept that? See, you can answer this for yourself. Have we kept that? Have we kept that? As I said, it says, when thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, thou mayest eat the grapes, thy fill, at thy own pleasure. So, we at this crossroads. See, that platform is here. The platform is here. We're in the desert. The platform is here. In the learning field is our wilderness. So we can learn to our field and not take upon ourselves in the wilderness, but let our flesh teach each other. Because a lot of us always say our flesh teaches us. And that's not the truth. Learning according to the flesh is not good. We need to take the time to seek the truth only because most people who go out and seek other truth didn't seek it with patience. They were trying to find it another way. They was impatient, trying to learn it one day. You see, many people, if we find out a lot of people, they might have fell on hard times and went to jail, seminaries, and different places like that. And they learn some version of a God in one day. And they take that same skill. They take that same skill and go and do something that they shouldn't be doing. They take that same identical skill. Some people go learn, and they go to jail, and they come out and they decide to be a preacher. People go to seminaries, and they learn the skills of something, of a God, and they get the skills of profiting and making money with those skills. Figuring while they believe what they believe, they're going to say we're going to save some souls, but we're going to be making money also. These are there. This is there. So how is that true? How can you sit there and God said He wants your body as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto Him. And He said, I'm going to give you as a gift to my people. So how is this true? Because what people are doing, they developing their own thing. Many of us have developed our own thing in doing this. In Isaiah chapter 66, and looking at verse 8, it says, who heard of such a thing? Who heard of such a thing? Who? Because it says, who have seen such things? Who have seen such things? See, because not just even with this with people, not just with people, all of a sudden they leave one way and come back another way. They can leave black and come back white. Who heard of such things? And they still the same people. Who heard of a doctor becoming a doctor in one day? Who heard of a team of teachers brought forth in one day? Because it tells you this right here. And it says, who heard of such things? Who have seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For comparing Zion, as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Patience. Patience is unique. It's unique. See, the earth was made, again, in 7 days. And everything within. Including how can the people be born in one day? So another question comes is, which came first? People use this as a joke, but which came first, the chicken or the egg? See, if the egg came first, if it came forth first, who taught the chicken what to eat? And how to reproduce? Who taught the chicken once it came out the egg? Or if the egg, how to sit on them to warm them to have them to hatch. But he the egg. But if the egg is first, that's all these things and other complications can come into play. But what if the chicken came first? Think about that. If the chicken came first, then how did the chicken know to lay eggs? And then who taught the chicken to have patience and have an egg and sitting on them for them to hatch? If the chicken came first. These are creations of God that we don't know the answers to. We want to guess because we think we're on the level of God. We feel we don't have to think, we don't have to meditate. We can just, this is what it is, and we guess. Interesting. So as people of Israel travailed, they conceived in their fleshly knowledge, because that's all travail is. They conceived any fleshly knowledge and brought forth their children, the works of it. Not looking at how that even Christ had patience with us, even the suffering through his patience for us to learn his skills. We didn't even take the time on it. We feel we already know it. See, this is a unique part of everything, on what Paul wants us to see, why patience and consolation is granted to you, but many of us going to always overlook it. To help us a little bit more, we're going to see something with Peter. Excuse me. We're going to see something with Peter in 3:18. And Peter says this. He says, for Christ, in 3:18, for Christ also have suffered for sin. How? As a spirit. Christ is a spirit. So how did he suffer for sin? It says, the just, Christ, for the unjust, us. So how did he do it? How did he suffer? But he gets better, it says, that he might bring us to God. Christ even shows the separation there, that it's the spirit, and he want to bring us to God, which he belongs to. It says, being put to death in flesh, but quickened by the spirit. So he put to death in the flesh. He's showing you right there, that's how he suffered. Coming inside of us. The reason we need to learn the patience, the skill of that, because Christ also suffered for our sins, having patience with us. Christ was just and suffering for the unjust, though through the learning we can be brought forth to God by separating our silliness in the works of the flesh, which is 100% death. It's not complex here. What Paul is closing out on us here, and what Peter even helping to chime in to assist us to understand what's happening. See, in verse 19 it says this. It says, by which also we went and preached unto the spirits in prison. Did you catch it? Did you catch it? If not, I'm going to explain it to you anyway, because our spirits are in prison because they're in flesh. That's why he says putting death in the flesh, because we're in prison right now. And that's a forethought. The forethought. And when he even came to these bodies and did that, watch what happens. In verse 20, it says, which sometimes were disobedient. And once the long suffering of God waited in those days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. You got how he did this. I like the way he did that. Because the 8 days of comfort is what that is, because that's all Noah means. While the ark was preparing. Interesting. 8 souls were saved by knowledge. 8. By knowledge. Think about that. Look how long, go back and read and see how long it took Noah to do that. To build that ark for God. So many of us has not taken the time to look at those. And many times we were 100% disobedient, showing that we didn't have patience, but God was showing patience towards Noah and waited on Noah to build up the ark. Not a boat, not a ship, an ark. And these things happen. So patience, we can receive knowledge, but because of patience, Christ showed us, even Noah. If he wouldn't have did that, if he wouldn't have showed patience with Noah, Noah even would have been lost. He would have been lost. So the only thing is we got to save ourselves from flesh, because we in prison. But it goes better. Peter, it says, the like figure hereunto, even baptism, doeth also now save us. The baptism. Because most people, as again, not understanding what paleo Hebrew words actually mean, and they go to these strong concordances, which is telling you 100% Yiddish. And for whatever reason, they want to use those to feel they have a definition in baptism, and baptizing don't mean nothing but condemning. And that's why it's saying, even condemning do also save us, because we have to condemn the flesh. It's what the main point of it was. Death in flesh, because he had to kill the flesh. Now putting away of the filth of the flesh. Interesting, isn't it? But the answer of good conscience towards God by the resurrection of salvation of the Anointed One. Well said by Peter. Well said. Well said, and should have a good conscience with us on what we need to do. So we know flesh is a problem. So we have to condemn flesh by acknowledging sin is in flesh. And most of us still not, we're going to sit there, but my grandmother, but see, that's what's going to keep a lot of us out of the kingdom. Because you thinking you can stay up to God and sit there and say, no, God, I'm going to tell you what, you can't sit there, my mom, my dad, my whoever. It was cool, according to the flesh. Okay, you go tell God that. He says all flesh is sin. In flesh is sin, and sin is in flesh. In flesh is sin, in the understanding of having a good conscience towards that. You have a good understanding towards God. And the resurrection of salvation is through Yahushua of the Anointed One, which is salvation of the Anointed One makes it clear. But the main thing is, most of us still are going to miss it. Most of us still are going to miss it. I'm not here to sit there to always tell all of us going to heaven. I don't teach that. I don't preach that. Because I know a lot of people are still going to have their own way of thinking. A lot of people, no matter what you say, they're going to sit there, yeah, oh, I see what he's saying, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You go your way. And you see this in verse 22 as we go down. It says, who is gone into heaven and is on the right hand of God. Messengers, including authorities and powers, be made subject unto him. Beautiful thing. So we got to remember that who is in heaven, the power of God and the messengers and the authorities, even them, is under subject to him. So this is why it's always set in a certain way. So in Colossians, it says something to help us tie this, to make sure we are all following this correctly. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 12, it says this. It says, put on therefore as comparing the elect of God. You see how they flipping this. You see how they working this. So we therefore as an elect, comparing you figuring you are elect of God, holy, separate yourself, beloved, bowls of mercy, kindness, humbleness, of mind, meekness, long suffering. You see how this works? See, now we're seeing what's going on. So through obedience, we have to put on the mind of teaching of Christ as being one of God's elect. Sin as being set apart, including with the promise. Having bowls of mercies and kindness and long suffering towards another. And teaching them through patience. Actually, let's look at this so where we can get it all. It says forbearing. You see, there go that forbearing again. Forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If any man have quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also ye do. No matter what, you're going to keep getting caught up. So the same thing as he keeps sitting there saying. Now, God of patience and the consolation granted you like-minded one towards another. This patience and this forbearance keep popping up. Keep popping up. Can't get around it. But we have to learn this skill. One towards another. And that skill is basically being taught towards Christ. Not sitting there where someone is using the opposition of that. Trying to teach you to go through some type of other thing. It's not that. Someone who's trying to learn of Christ. Not someone who has the opposition of it. Being more so, let's look at this. Let's look at Paul over here in Hebrews. Paul in Hebrews, and we're going to go to 6 and 12. It says that ye be not slothful, but followers of them through faith, including patience. Including patience. Inherit the promises. I know a lot of people, they saying that like, man, boy, we can't get around this. We can't. Yeah, you have your brothers and sisters out there that many of them want to learn. We have to sit there and open our hands up wide because they're poor. You have the wealth of heaven in your mind, and we have to share it. You have to share the wealth. In fact, just keeping that in mind, we're going to look at something in Isaiah. We're going to go to Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16. 28:16 says this. It says, therefore, thus said the Creator God, remember I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone. He's laying a foundation, a stone in Zion. And Zion is talking about the children of Israel. And this stone is a tri-stone. It's telling you, a tri-stone, a precious cornerstone. A sure foundation, he that believeth shall not make haste. Patience. A skill that we need to learn. A skill that has a unique ability to open up many other things. But still, to complement that is what he said, now God of patience, including consolation. So we just need that skill. We just looking for that skill. Consolation. Comfort. That we should also have one towards another. As the anointed one of salvation has showed us as he was doing that when he was teaching us patience. So we learned this skill, and we need to have that same comfort with someone else, but have the patience and the skill to teach someone. And many people, the only bad thing about this is when you do this, many people are going to hate you for it. As I have no shortage of people that hate me. No shortage of it. Because when you teach a doctrine that people can see, is why we keep the Bibles up there. So you can see right where I'm coming from. Because these words are not mine. So you never give me the credit for what you learn. The credit don't go to me. The credit goes to Christ. Because Christ in me is giving you the word. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just a vessel. So it has nothing to do with me. And I learn as you learn. So we learn these skills. And the patience is a skill of men, and men hate you for it. You'll be reproached for this. Teaching God's people, and they're going to make you seem like you this evil person. But you got to show them, and show them the comfort in the truth. People are going to hate you when you give them the truth. Because you have people who is contrary. And just so you got to always have, that's why with patience, you got to have comfort. Because people are going to sit there like, man, everybody's against me. Okay, I get that. We get this. But the main thing is comfort. It's only a short time. See, in Luke chapter 6, and look at verse 22, it says this. It says, blessed are ye when men shall hate you, and when they should separate you from their company. A lot of you guys can relate to this. A lot of you guys can relate to this. They'll separate you from their company. You have people where when you teach the truth, yeah, people will sit there and they'll call all kind of things about you. They have all kind of things they want to say about you. You know, I've been called a child of Satan. I've been called everything but a child of God. And most people are shocked. It's actually more than often than not. And all I ever do is show all Bible, all the time, 100% of the time. But it doesn't matter. Because they want to separate you from their company. And the worst part is this. It says right here, it says, and shall reapproach you. So you shouldn't feel bad, because that's where the comfort kicks in. Because with patience you learn, but as you learn, you're going to start making adjustments in your life. As you're making the adjustments, people are going to start seeing differences in you. Once they start seeing differences, and it's not towards the world, you're doing something that is foreign to them, adhering to a word. They do what? They separate from you. They separate from you. Including cast your name as evil for the Son of Man's sakes. And the Son of Man is nothing but the Spirit of Christ. for his sakes, they're going to separate from you. And all you're doing is giving them the word of God. They're going to trash your name. You did Satan, you everything but a child of God. Some people will even go to the point to where they will wish you dead. I wish he just fall over and die. I wish he walk down the street and a plane fall on him. I wish when he go across a train track, a train comes out of nowhere. These things have been told to me many times. But the thing is this, as people say those things, I have comfort in the scriptures. Consolation is granted. Because I already know. Either way, I live, I gain, I die, I gain. It doesn't matter. All I got to do is keep sharing the word with his people. That's all I have to do. Nothing more, nothing less. I don't have to sit there and boast. You guys do this and give me money for this, or do that and give me money for that. And we all going to go to heaven together. And while I'm in the middle of that, I'm buying myself Bugattis and everything else. No. I see my wealth to be in heaven. So people sit there, see that I teach, and you don't see donation buttons and things like that on King James Bible University platforms, as well as with the Lost Sheep of Israel. You don't see donations or seek donations in any way, shape, or form, or even ask for them. So I'm out of the norm with many people, as many of us. It's out of the norm with many people. So they sit there and they hate you because you're not doing as the world do. So they separate you from their company. They're going to reapproach you. They're going to cast your name for evil, for the Son of Man's sakes. And I want to show you something to help you out a little bit more. And I want to take you over here to 1 Peter. We're going to look at 1 Peter chapter 3. We're going to pick it up at verse 13. At 13, yeah, I'm sorry, you guys. Y'all got, my wife was walking in here, just making me laugh, trying to tiptoe in here. So, at 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 13, and it says, "And who is he that will harm you if ye be followers of that which is good?" Who is it that will harm you just because you're followers of something that is good? As I said, it's interesting. It's really, really interesting. And we have to keep this in mind. This is why it's so important, to where you gonna go through this. And I can't even take the belt for this, because you have some people can tell you horror stories on how people have treated them once they decide to take on the truth. They can tell you horror stories. So I can sit there and say all about mine. I just got a platform where you hear mine. But I guarantee you, people in the back can tell you horror stories that will make mine look like a basket case. But you have people who will harm you if you be followers of that which is good. So, and not only that, they're going to reapproach you. And being reapproached is someone who's being disgraced or being spoken in shame of, where they rebuking you of, in their eyes, you're an abomination to them. But look at this, and I'm going to show you this. Watch what it says here. In verse 14, it says this. It says, but if ye suffer the righteousness for righteousness' sake, exactly, because this you're going to suffer that. They're going to talk about you. They used to call you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, calling you, calling you, calling you. All of a sudden, you pulling everything out the Bible, those calls stop. They ain't checking on you. All because of what you're doing. Because you've been a follower of which is good. So you need consolation. You need comfort in what you're doing. And the comforting is the word, but your payment is on the other side. So happy are ye, and be not afraid of their terror, neither be troubled. Don't be troubled of this. Don't get caught up into this. These things must happen because he wants you to see who they are. You can sit there and say, man, I never expected them to be like that. I never expected this one to be that way towards me. I never thought it was them. I never thought it was him. I never thought it was her. I wouldn't have thought in a million years it would have been that one. You have people who grow, they say they ride together, they die together. You do that word, you'll find out how quick that separates. And it says in Luke, back in Luke chapter 6 and verse 23, it says, rejoice ye in that day and leap for joy. Some of y'all only going to want to leap. Probably don't even want to leap off the ground. But he's telling you leap for joy. For remember your reward. See, your reward. We just said this. Your reward is great in heaven. For in the like manner did their fathers unto the prophets. By this word is given you that is proven to be true. The things coming out of my mouth is I'm just showing you what it is. That you can be comforted. Has nothing great on my part of saying or doing anything. All these words is of God. And it says, but 24, it says, but woe unto you that are rich. But woe unto you that are rich. See, woe, many people are mistaken that, but woe means, but because, that's all they're saying, but because unto you that are rich. For ye have received your consolation. Because many people is going to hold what they have in this world. And that's what their comfort is in. Their comfort going to be in money. Their comfort might be in houses, cars, power, fame. That is their consolation. That is in the earth. So we don't want that kind of comfort. We don't need that comfort. And this is the same thing what he's saying as we go through it. In verse 6 in Romans, it's saying, that ye may be with one mind, including one mouth, glorify God, even the Father of our Creator of salvation of the Anointed One, which is Christ. Meaning this, because it's telling you exactly what he's saying, and I just need to make sure we all on the same page. In Isaiah chapter 12, verse 2, it says, remember, God is my salvation. We need to be of one mind and glorify, one mouth, glorify God. Even the Father of our Creator. Even the Father of our Creator of salvation. God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. For the Spirit of God, Jehovah, which is salvation of the Anointed One, is my strength and my song. He also become my salvation. So this is the whole point of this. And knowing that the Father is salvation and we're going to trust in him, but Jehovah Christ is our strength in our song, and he's our confession. We the one we confess to him. He acknowledges this, and he has become our salvation and our comfort. So we know these things now. We get them, we remember them, and we can move forward on it. So hopefully through this, we remember what's going on. And what we're going to do from this point, we're going to go in the back and we'll get the precepts of this to where you guys can put in your books. And then we can commence. But I thought I had Deacon Micah's and Deacon Smith thumbnail with me, but I don't have it. But this afternoon, this evening, they will be doing one about Christmas. So if you haven't been over there to OKC King James Bible University, please make sure that you go over there for that, because they're going to be talking about Jesus' birthday and a whole lot of other things. And a lot of stuff that's going on with Christmas. So this is something that everybody needs to go over there and really, really check out, because it's going to be interesting today. And then we'll pick up next week, and we're going to keep moving forward on Romans on next Sunday. So with that, if you choose to go into the area for Zoom, you guys are more than welcome. You can look right down in the bottom in the description. You'll see the Romans lessons 126 summary. You'll see the link for the Zoom, and we'll be looking for you back there. So other than that, I appreciate each and every one that came over, and hopefully that you have learned a little bit, because Paul is closing out, and he's trying to part us with some gifts as before he leaves. So just make sure you put that in your heart and your mind and your soul, and keep that in mind. So with that, I say to each and every person, until next time, shalom.